Welcome to the Simple Planning Tool from Third Sector Skills. Over the next 10 minutes or so we're going to go through the tool and show you how you can use it to manage small, simple projects. And that's really an important point. It is only suitable for small projects with a relatively small number of tasks and resources and not that many different ways of getting money in or spending money. So how does it work? Essentially, it's an Excel spreadsheet which sits in the middle here. You feed in resource, item costs and income, and it will turn out a cash flow forecast for your project. And you can also use this cash flow forecast as a sort of a Gantt chart to manage the project. The resource costs coming in are what it costs you for your people to do the work. Salaries, desk space, all that sort of stuff. Item costs, I've called it here. That's where you really spend money out of your organisation. So this would be transport, buying materials, that sort of stuff. And income, hopefully you've got some income, and we'll feed that in as well. And the Simple Planning Tool then churns it all out and generates you a cash flow. So for the sake of the next 10 minutes, let's think of a project. So the project I have in mind here is gathering stuff together. So imagine, if you will, that there are, let's say, 3 similar projects in your area, and they're already running, and they're running moderately successful. And somebody somewhere, the funder, has come to you and said, actually, wouldn't it be a grand idea if you could take the best out of these 3 projects, combine them into some sort of template or pack, then reproduce this pack and send it all over the country, so the project could be used everywhere and used really well. So you've broken your project, which is to produce the pack, into 2 phases. First of all, gather information, find out what's going on, bit of research into how the projects are running, interview the people who are benefiting from the projects, interview the people who are running on projects, working in them, and then write a report. And the report will say, this is what we recommend you do in the pack. Somebody will review it and say yes, go or no go, and then the job is now to produce the pack. There's a drafting stage, some sort of review, then finalising it, and then printing it, publishing it, getting it out there. So the resource we have Andy and Barbara, and they are really good researchers. Charlie's an ace interviewer. Deborah's the main person here. You can see she's writing the report, and then when the report is hopefully approved, she will be drafting and finalising the pack. And together with Design Co, and Design Co is an outside agency that I imagine they're some sort of graphic designer or printer or publisher, but they're the people who will turn Deborah's ideas into reality. So we have the tasks, more or less. We have the resources. Let's go straight into the Simple Planning Tool and start putting the data in. So here's the first sheet of the Simple Planning Tool, and you can see we've got essentially a Gantt chart of sorts, and across the top we have week numbers. Now in the version you can download, you can make this days or months, whatever. Just for now it's going to be week numbers. We've got the tasks written down the left hand side in this red bubble. There's the gathering bit, there's producing the pack together. Down at the bottom we've got meetings. We'll come back to that in a minute. Over on the right here we have the list of resources. So we've basically put Andy and Barbara doing the research, etc., just like we said on the previous slide. And we have admin, that's the lady who is putting the stuff together and shipping the stuff out. You can see here what we've done is to grey in these boxes. So what this is saying is, in week 8 Deborah will start doing the draft of the template. It'll take her 3 weeks to do it. We're just getting an idea of timescales here. We're not putting great detail in just yet, but this gives you an idea. There's the project plan as it goes through. Makes some sort of sense. What about this meeting stuff at the bottom though? This is really for me as a project manager. There is going to be a meeting in week 1 where everybody gets together. This is the plan, this is how we're going to work it, etc. And around about week 4, when the research and interviews finished, I plan to have another project review meeting just before we let Deborah loose in producing the report. Here's the big one. Deborah's done her report, and in week 7 there's no activity in my team because that report's being reviewed by somebody else, and so it goes on throughout the project there. So we've got some idea of times, we've got some idea of who's doing what. Now let's look at putting some money into this. So here's the second sheet. Across the top we still have the week numbers, and down the left hand side we now have the the resource in the blue lines and some numbers in the white lines. Let's ignore the numbers for now. But what this is showing here is, although Andy is down for working the first 4 weeks doing the research, he's actually only going to use for 2 days a week out of those. So we're now starting to tie down the resource usage a little bit more closely. And we've done the same for everybody. So here we have Deborah's working pretty full time, you should through here. Now the white lines here, they show the cost. So we figured out that Andy costs £250 per day. So that's what he costs us, not what we're paying him. Poor Andy. But there you go. This includes all the heating and lighting, all that other good stuff. And the spreadsheet does something really complicated. It multiplies £250 by 2 and comes up with £500 here. So this is saying that in week 1 the organisation has to fork out £500 to cover Andy's costs, and it's the same process all the way through the entire spreadsheet. If you look at the project manager, I've dotted myself in here for quite a lot of work at the beginning, just monitoring work half a day a week most of the time, maybe a 1 day while exciting things are going on. So I've kind of allocated my time and costs to the project, so I haven't forgotten me. And then down here at the bottom we have the totals. So this tells you that in week 1 the organisation has to find nearly £2,500. Week 2 about the same, and so it goes. And the total cost of our resource to ourselves is about £21,000. So we know that, but more importantly we know when the money's being spent. Look, there's quite a lot at the beginning and it drops down again. There's a bit more, there's quite a chunk. There's a big chunk at the end. This is when the packs are being put together and shipped out. So now we have a good idea of how much our resource is going to cost us for this project and when we're going to have to spend the money. Okay, let's move on to the item costs. So this is money that's flowing out of the organisation, and there's only a few lines here. We've got travel, etc. There's estimated £100 worth of travel in the first 4 weeks when the interviews and the research is being done. Postage, big chunk, but it's all at the end in week 16 when the pack's being put out together. The design code, that's the big numbers. Well, here's where they're designing the draft of the pack. Here's where they're finalising it, and this 6,000 is the printing. So again, what we have is the totals, £10,500 roughly, of money we actually have to write cheques for, and again an idea of when they're coming in. Not much coming out at the beginning. It's very heavily weighted towards the end of the project, which you'd expect. So there we have the expenditure. What about the income? Okay, here we have the income sheet. Week numbers got to stop as usual, and here we have ABC Local Authority have kindly decided to give us £20,000 in 4 bites, and these are the weeks that we've agreed they will pay us. Grant B, I don't know, from a grant making trust of some sort, but they've agreed to pay us up front too, which is jolly decent of them. Now remember week 7, week 8 we had a big review, didn't we, of the pack. And so what we're going to do here, assuming that the review is successful, we're going to have a big party in week 8, a big event where we're going to try and raise some funds. Here's this pack's coming, it'll be here with you in 6 weeks, publicise, and of course we're going to take the advantage to make some money. And yet again, down at the bottom we have the totals, the income, and roughly when it's coming in. 30,500. So now we've discussed the income and the expenditure separately. This sheet brings it all together. So here we have the income summary. There's the money coming in, when it's coming in, totaling 30,500. Here's the expenditure, the resource costs, the item costs. Other is a line I've just left there in case there's something that doesn't fit neatly in these categories. And here's the total. Fantastic. The important thing to look at here is the cumulative cash flow. That's the bit that really tells the story. So here all I've done is take £12,500 in, £2,500 out, leaves us with a positive balance of about £10,000. Great. And as we spend the money, as we go down towards the right here, we can see the money is, the positive cash balance is decreasing. Oh, we get a big bump in here, another 5,000 from the local authority. on it goes, etc, etc. Looking pretty good. So far we haven't gone overdrawn on our bank balance until here. Oh dear. It's going swimmingly well right up till we have to send the stuff out to the hundreds of people who've asked us for the pack. So that's quite bad news. It's disappointing. However, the really good news is we know about this now rather than in 15 weeks' time. We've spent, well, in real life you probably spend about half a day working this out, and in that half day you've got a good idea of who's working on it, how much they're going to cost you, and most importantly of all, the fact that the project will go into deficit, but it's going to go into deficit right at the end. So now, although it's not good news, without expending a whole heap of energy, you have found this out, and you can now think, well, what shall I do about it? What am I going to do with this information? You can draw these conclusions from the sheet. The project program seems to work. It hangs together. Cash flow is okay right until the end because the project doesn't break even right at the end. So what do? Do we just say to heck with it and go and hope that £1,000 will magically appear out of thin air somewhere along the way? Possible. We could say, well, let's find some more funding and then go with it. Or we could say, well, there's no way we can raise any more money for this project, and we can't justify taking £1,000 out of reserve to fund it. We're going to walk away. So that's not bad for a morning's work, and there's even more we can find out from that spreadsheet. Just go back to the summary sheet. This is where we have the income and expenditure coming in, going out, and the timings. Supposing the local authority is late with their payment, so this £12,500 will not come in week 1, it might come in, say, week 3. What effect does that have on the cash flow of the project? You can do all sorts of little games with this. Perhaps we can bring in £4,000 here. All sorts of what-if scenarios you can run just by dropping the numbers in different weeks. So there we are. That's a simple planning tool. I hope it's useful for you. If you want to download all the stuff, you can find it at this URL, thirdsectorskills.com, resources, downloads, simple planning tool. You'll find a copy of the spreadsheet, a copy of the written instructions, and a copy of the example we've just gone through, so you can play around with it. Any problems you have, you know where to find us. Hope it's useful for you, and see you again soon, hopefully. Bye-bye now. Remember, this spreadsheet shows you the income and expenditure and the timings of all that. Supposing, for example, the local authority is a little bit late in delivering £5,000, this wouldn't be 12.5, it would be 7.5. Maybe the £5,000 comes in week 3. What effect would that have on the cash flow? Just by moving the numbers around, we can see exactly what's going to happen. And it could well be this, this £5,000 here could be late. That one may be late. If that one was late, that would be disastrous because we're relying on that to cover the cost of the printing. So by moving the numbers around, we can find out really quite a lot about the risks to this project. So there we are. That's a simple planning tool. I hope it's been useful to you. I hope you can make use of it. You can download all the stuff you need from this web page. You'll find there this spreadsheet itself. There's some written explanation of how to use it and a copy of the example. So I hope it's useful to you. Good luck. Hope it goes well. Bye for now.